Hello, friends. So, as you can tell, I have my sexy Kathleen Turner voice. I still have congestion, so I apologize ahead of time for that. We're going to actually start standing. Many of you know, but I have a lot of new friends. The first week of a new year that I teach, I always teach a foot-based class, right? And that is because it is the foundation. It is what we stand on, walk on. And although we spend a lot of our time seated these days, I would say our main foundation, hopefully, is our feet. If not, and we sit a lot, let's make it our feet more for those of us who can. So come into an upright standing position. I'm going to break down a couple of things. It's a very foundational class, right? Your hip joints. When someone says feet hip distance, a lot of times I see students think that's their outer hips, right? Hip distance. And so they're going towards their outer hip. Actually, what I mean anyway is your hip socket. So if I were to bend just a little bit at the waist, right? The pelvis. That is where my hip joint is height wise. And then I'm going to move in from my outer hips just a couple of inches. And I'm going to put my heels under that, under my hip sockets, right? There is this common teaching of toes straight forward. That depends on your calf, your knees. So bend the knees a little bit. Make sure your knees point straight forward, right? And that your femur is in neutral rotation. Go ahead and pick up one foot, leave the heel down, but pick one toe, ball mounds up, spread your toes out wide and set them down. And then do that with the other one. And then wherever your toes are pointing, let that be that, right? And stand up nice and slow, pulling the kneecaps up. And then we're going to do what I call MC Escher. He's that beautiful artist with all the visual illusions, I'll call them, right? So we're on our feet, but we're going to rock a little forward and a little back. And keep your knees pretty straight, your spine pretty straight, and make that motion a little smaller and a little smaller until you feel the weight distributed evenly from front to back. You're right in the middle, right? And then we're going to do the same from side to side. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to lean a little to the right, center, left, center. And I say a little bit, pardon me, try to find your edges, not like you're going to tip over, but take it a little bit and notice what happens with the weight distribution in your feet when you do that. Right? And again, make that a little smaller and a little smaller until you are neutral from right to left. Now, my tendency, and many of us, is to pitch forward. So although I'm neutral from right to left, I find I've gone right back into that forward standing position. So I need to put more weight in my heels. I'm not saying that's you. Pay attention to your body and find the movement that suits you. So you're right in the middle, from right to left, from front to back. And then just take a few moments, maybe close or mostly close the eyes, and notice your body, what it's like to be in your body at this moment in time. Does the weight continue to shift? Are there parts of your body that feel tight, loose, numb, in pain? Feel really healthy and solid, I'll call it. Probably a little bit of all of this in your body, right? This beautiful body that we're lucky enough to start a new year in. Go ahead and open those eyes. I know I say it a lot, but I just watched the past 2 years, I had a lot of loved ones die. So I do believe we're the lucky ones. We woke up. Go ahead and come forward to the top of your mat and try to find that same situation in your feet. And actually, one thing before we go much further, I'm going to talk about the tripod of the feet. For beginners, I usually teach bum on the big toe, pinky toe, inner heel, and outer heel. But once we start to advance, and a lot of you have been with me for a long time, we start to make it a tripod and we talk about the very center of the heel, right? That's the calcaneus bone. So find the tripods of each foot rooting down with equanimity. Inhale, reach those arms out and up. We're going to do a half sun salutation. Exhale, bend your knees a little bit, everybody. Give yourself a little sense of ease in your hamstrings. Reach the chest forward. Hands on shins can be a helpful tool here. Exhale, soften in. With my congestion, I'm not going to fold all the way in. Please do if it's available to you. Inhale, reach the arms out and really root down those feet to come on up. And exhale, arms down. We're going to do it again and add on. Inhale, just start to flow in that body. Maybe you did yoga the whole 2 weeks we had off, but in case you're just getting into your body, inhale and haven't been moving a lot or you've been traveling, bend your knees and plant your hands. Again, I'm going to come up a little bit higher with my congestion. I'm going to use my blocks. Step your left foot back. Go ahead and bend your right knee back into its bend if it came out. And we're in high lunge legs. Pay attention to the right foot. Where does your weight go when we're in this lunge and you're not thinking about it? Right? I'm in the outer edge towards my pinky toe. So I need to put a lot more weight in the ball onto my big toe in the center of my heel. What do you need? Lengthen the body. Push that left heel back like it was connected to a wall. Does that help your crown of your head reach forward, your spine elongate? We're going to step forward and switch out the legs. Step your right foot back. And again, first thing today is where's the weight in that left foot? If you're like me and you go to the pinky edge, notice how the ankle goes out, the knee goes out, all the joints above, right? So if I find my neutral, I'm going to call it, my equal distribution of weight in that left foot, it changes the game in every joint above. Right? Now push that right heel back, lengthen the crown of the head forward. It's not that this is the perfect way to do this. We're just paying attention. Step your right foot forward. Inhale halfway up. Exhale, fold. I am so sorry for all my sniffling and stuff. I'm going to say it one more time and now I'll stop saying it. Inhale, reach those arms out and up. Exhale, arms down by the side. And just pause. And again, we're going to take a couple of moments every once in a while, and I'm considering this our blueprint pose today. Tadasana, mountain pose. My weight is a little forward and to the left. I need to shift back and to the right. What is your pattern? And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to play a little bit with our feet in this way, right? You're going to take a block up towards the top of your mat. And actually, we're going to work in some of the muscles above the foot, right? But I think it'll make a difference in your foot and your standing. So put your toes up on the block. If you don't have a block, by the way, you could be at a wall. If the block is too high, do a wall, do something lower. But I'm going to try and bring my toes up wherever that is for me. And I've got my heel down. My left foot is my leverage, right? I can be a little further away. I'm not feeling much in my calf. I can step in a little bit. And rather than sending your head forward, I see that a lot. Let your hips, frontal hip points start to reach forward until you feel that stretch come through the Achilles tendon, the calves, something like that, right? And stretch. And notice that you're also stretching through the sole of the foot, the fascia down there. And step back. You can move the block or your body. Left foot's going to step up. Toes as high as you can without hurting yourself, right? Step that right foot and leave that left heel down. And again, my leverage, I can push into that right foot. It doesn't help me to send my head forward. It does get me deeper, cause more length if I pull my frontal hip points up and move a little forward. And again, I'm just looking for sensation. Not so much that my body locks up and gets protective, and breathe into that length. Notice the sole of your foot. Notice the calf, the Achilles tendon, and step back. And then just leave the block there for now. Stand in mountain pose. Notice if anything is shifted or changed. And before we go much further into the footwork, I'd like us to do downward dog. We're going to use this as another blueprint. So you can just leave your feet there, but turn around and face the other side. If you're like, I can't, that's the back of the mat, go to the back of the mat. Right? You're going to walk your feet up. It's funny the patterns we get ourselves into and can't let go of. And downward dog, right? If this stuff is brand new to you, feel free to go back and do some other of my foundational videos that break some of this down. Go ahead and bend your knees, push your hands forward and down, and reach your buttocks bones up and back. Try to get that spine as long as you can. So even if you're used to straight legs, please bend your knees. When we bend them, we're not causing the hamstrings to pull on the ischial tuberosities, the bottom of the pelvis, so you're not rounding the low back, etc. Right? Now start to push your heels down, but don't let your spine lose its length. Wherever you get to is where you get to. This is great. Take another breath, just noticing what downward dog feels like in the body. And then this time you're going to bring your knees down, friends, and uncurl your toes. And go ahead and start to sit back. Now you could put a blanket roll underneath your ankles. If you're like, holy shit, on the top of the ankles, your medial arches start to cramp. If you can, and this is not every body, right? We bring the body upright and we rest on our heels. Personal opinion with most bodies I've worked with, it's better to have the buttocks down and the body forward than the body way up and moving the weight back. But again, play with that for yourself. That's not necessarily always the case. And come forward. This time you're going to curl your toes under. Sorry for the back view, but I think this is where it's at, right? And I'm going to start to sit back. Again, I might leave my body weight forward. I might start to bring my body upright and put more weight into the soles of my feet. One of them is harder for you than the other, right? I haven't met anyone where that's not the case anyway. If so, let me know. But otherwise, one of those motions is a lot more difficult in our body. Go ahead and come forward, right? So I'm going to get a little more particular this time. Thank you for allowing me to move slow and build this foundation. We'll bring it with us for the rest of the year. Uncurl your toes. This time, I'm going to pay attention to the outer ankles. I might even put my fingers, if I can, on my outer ankles and keep pushing my outer ankles in as I come into my posture, right? I'm going to show you. You stay in. Most of the time, most of us sickle out and we end up coming on, right? The big toes point in towards each other, the ankles push out. Not awesome on the joints to do that over and over and over. So just have a consciousness of that. Big toes pointing straight back and come forward. Uncurl your toes, and similarly, don't let your heels and your ankles bow out or in. That is some people's patterns. It's just less of the population. So again, I can put my hands on my outer ankles to see what they're doing. I can use my hands to help hug them in or separate them out if I need to with my heels, right? And pause. Okay, now uncurl your toes and just pitter patter them into the floor. Let everything be kind of loosey goosey, right? One of my favorite things after this sequence is taking the top of my right foot and banging out my left arch. Right? Whatever speed and um, pressure feels good. And then top of left foot's going to bang out your right arch. And then come into that downward dog again. Right? If downward dog is not accessible, you could just stand in Tadasana. The point we're not the point, the arch, the practice that we're doing right now is we're coming back to a pose and noticing if there's difference, right? Bend the knees, lengthen the spine, and keep all of that. And then start to root your heels down. And I would just be curious if anything has shifted or changed. Maybe you feel like you're more grounded energetically. Maybe the heels are closer to the floor. Maybe you feel like the back of your knees are more open or whatever that is. Buttocks bones can reach up with more ease. What do you feel? And go ahead and walk your hands back to your feet. Hands on shins, reach the chest forward. Exhale and fold. And then inhale, reach those arms out, coming all the way up. You know hands could be on hips, yeah? Exhale, reach those arms out. Let's take those shoulders through a couple of rolls. Give a little attention in the upper body since it's a lower body day. Go ahead and move the other way. Okay, so we need that block one more time. You want a sturdy block. If you do not have a sturdy block, sorry, I'm looking over here because there's a bookshelf. Harry Potter hardcover edition, 5th volume, right, would be great. Something thick and hard, right? And then I'm going to stand in Tadasana, but my right foot's going to be on the block. I'm going to make sure my heel is grounded and my toes are hanging off. So regardless of the size of your foot, try to find that, all of us. My pinky toe doesn't make it off. My big toe does, whatever that is. And so I'm standing in what I call funky Tadasana. Don't look down at your feet once you got it. Stand up tall. Hands can be on hips if you need a place to live. Mine always do. And then try to find that equal pressure in both feet, even though we're in this weird position, from front to back, from right to left, all the things we've been cultivating. And then go ahead and come up on your left tippy toes until you have a straight right leg, right buttocks hugging in. Find your pelvic floor. We're going to go for balance. Here's where you know if your surface is too soft. If you're going all over with your foot and it's squishing down, find something else. Now, you don't have to look down. Pay attention. If your toes are curling over your block, you have what I call monkey toes. You tend to balance with your toes. So we're going to try not to do that. We're going to lift the toes up, right? We're going to shift the weight back and put more in our heels so we're evenly distributed. And then we're going to try to let the left toes lift. So I'm in Tadasana, but my left foot is standing on air. I could use a surface of a wall or a chair or something to hold on to, right? But try to stand in Tadasana, hugging that right glute in and keeping those toes. They don't have to be like actively lifted, but don't let them curl down. That means the weight back in the heel, thigh working. Go ahead and bring that down. So this one is not always revolutionary for everybody, but for some people it like blows the mind. I did for me. I used to be a monkey toe grabber. I still can move towards that, but I have shifted that pattern and I'm more stable because of it in my balancing poses, right? But I will say I had probably like 4 or 5 months of not being able to balance at all when I tried to learn how to shift the way I'd always done it. So I'm in funky Tadasana. I'm distributing the weight between the ball mounds of the big toes, pinky toes, and the center of the heel, the tripod, right? Find your core. Don't look down. It's not going to help you. That's where you're going to go. Right? Go ahead and come up on your right tippy toes. Hug that left glute in. Get everything active, core line wise, right? And then maybe lift those. Oh, actually, sorry, before you lift your right toes, lift your left toes. Again, notice the monkey toe thing. That's why we're on the block. And then you can keep them lifted or just let them kind of hang, but don't let them curl and grab. And then lift your right toes. So for many of us, in order to do that, that means we have to shift the weight back into that left heel more so it's active. That activates everything above, including the left quad. Again, feel free to put your hand on something to find this and play with this. I encourage falling over, but if the whole time you're just falling over and you can't pause for a moment in it to play with the weight in the foot, I think that's where the benefit is today, right? And come on down. Whew, and breathe. My legs feel like they're working pretty good. You can ditch the block, standing in Tadasana, taking just a moment here, mountain pose, right? Y'all, I've been doing this practice for like 24 years. Still move forward into the right almost every single time. Once I get there, and I don't beat myself up about it anymore. Okay, that's how I stand. Got it, got it. I'm going to shift my weight from me back into the right until I feel that equanimity in my feet. And just notice Tadasana. We've done it a number of times. Does it feel any different than the first time you did it? Without judgment, by the way. Okay, one more stop here, and then we're going to start finishing the class. So we're going to stand our feet out wide. You'll want to face the long edge of your mat. If you're on a hardwood floor or something, good on you. Awesome. Just don't be on something slidey. And then from there, we're going to try and keep our upper body pretty still. So put one hand on your solar plexus, it's above your belly button, one hand on your heart-ish, something like that chest. And then we're going to turn our left toes in and the heel a little back. So I've got a little turnout on what will be the back foot. Warrior two is where we're headed. And then I'm going to let that whole right foot turn out. Straighten the leg. Look down for just a second. Make sure your toes, your shin, your knee, everything's facing that right side. And my chest follows that, especially when I look that way. So keep the knee pointing that way. Turn your chest back to face the long edge of the mat and bend the right knee gliding over second toe. Warrior two. Pause. You can leave your hands where they are. You can put hands on hips. You can reach the arms out. Upper body's not as interesting to me today. I'm going to be moving my arms. Please know that. Pay attention to your right foot. Pick up your toes. Spread them wide. You'll feel your inner arch lift. You'll feel some weight shift into the heel, hopefully. If not, shift them there because we usually don't put it in there. And then spread your toes, put them down, and don't monkey toe. Don't grab with your toes. Simply let them set on the earth. So again, hopefully all three corners are working. Try to keep that. Back foot. Usually we dump into that arch in the ball onto the big toe, right? So push more through that outer heel. I could use more of a turnout on my own foot. I'm going to push that outer heel down, and you can't see it real good because you're not right next to it, but it changes my ankle, my lower leg, my knee, my upper leg, my hip, everything above it, right? And now it's an active participant in the pose instead of just kind of hanging in and my front leg doing everything. So both feet root down, and there's that rising up out of that. I don't lift up, but the energetics, right, lift me up. Straighten the legs, hands on the hips, toes forward. One hand solar plexus, one hand chest, heart area. Right toes in, heel back. Try not to change your chest too much. Try to let that happen below. Turn that whole left leg out. And now, without looking at it first, right now we look at it and we see how we did. We make adjustments if we need to. I usually do. And then I'm going to turn my chest back. That's playing with your proprioceptive sense, by the way. And then bend the left knee. Hands can live wherever you want to today. Right? And again, my hands don't mimic mine. I'm pointing to things. In that left heel, you're probably all in the ball mounds and all in the toes. So lift your toes up, spread your toes wide, shift some weight into the heel, right? Try to keep the arch lifted, the medial arch, and then set the toes down without monkey toeing. Hopefully that makes sense now. Back foot. Do you cave your inner arch in? I do, my medial arch. I really have to work. I got this adjustment all the time from my teacher. She would come by and she would put her foot on my outer heel and she would pull it back and down. And this whole leg lights up and I'm not sagging and hanging in my joints anymore, right? And then breathe into that, whatever your version is today. And straighten the legs, hands on the hips, toes forward. We're going to do a forward fold. If you are someone who has a really tight inner groin, right, adductors, I'm going to suggest you turn your toes in, heels out. So you're almost a little pigeon-toed. Most of us are fine with our feet parallel, right? And then hands on the hips, lengthen the spine. Bend the knees just a little bit. That just prevents the locking of the knees or pressure on the knee joints. Coming on down till your hands can get to the ground. If they can't, put a block or a chair underneath you. Not a big deal. Go ahead and straighten the legs a little or a lot. Imagine my hands holding the head of your femur, the very top of your thighs, right? And I'm not going to let them go anywhere. If your hips are back behind your heels, actually, let me start there. Bring them a little forward. If they're in front of the heels, bring them a little back. You want your hips in line with your heels, your ankles and your heels, best you can. So I'm not pulling your hips back. I'm just holding them there, and you're going to reach your arms forward, one paw print at a time. So your upper body is basically in downward dog. Your lower body is in Uttanasana Konasana, wide-legged forward fold, right? So don't let the hips move back. That's the tendency. But keep your feet evenly grounded. I see this pretty equally. Many people dive into their arches. Many people will go into the pinky edge. So which pattern are you? And then obviously you would compensate. If I'm going all to my pinky edge, I'm going to push more through the inner edge of my feet. If I'm all on the inner edge, I'm going to push more through my pinky edge. A hugely useful tool for my body is to pull my toes up again. Make sure that I'm working my heel side of the foot. I'm working my arches. When I picked up my toes, I noticed my kneecaps lift and my knees got more active, right? Put the toes down and then walk your hands back and go into a forward fold, whatever that is in your body. You can grab ankles, hands might just walk between the feet. If you're extremely tight, your hands might just stay under your shoulders and your knees might be a little bent. That's okay too. Listen, we have the bodies that we have, and aren't we lucky that we have them? And they're carrying around this amazing spirit that we are. Walk your hands a little forward if they were back. Hands on the shins, bend the knees, lengthen the spine, come up with a little bit of strength. Toe heel, coming on in. Standing in Tadasana one last time. Maybe eyes closed or mostly closed. And I kid you not, when I first pay attention, I'm forward to the left. So that's my pattern. It's not every single time I'm in Tadasana, but more often than not, it is. So I notice, oh, this is where I'm at today. Okay. In order for me to find equanimity, I need to shift my body in this way. Bring your hands together in front of your chest. Inhale. And as you bow your head in, before we say namaste, one of the things that working with the feet and doing these standing poses is said to do in yoga is to ground us, to center us. And I believe that to be true. It happens to me every time I do a foot-based class or do a lot of standing poses, right? So it is true for me personally. So just notice if you feel a little more grounded or centered than maybe you did when we started. And if so, just know this is a tool for you, right? We're about ready to start a new year. For those of us in the United States, a change in government, all kinds of things. Fires in Los Angeles, ice storms in the Midwest. It's a little out there right now. Namaste. So may we take the time to feel our feet on the ground and feel grounded so that whatever circumstances happen, whatever comes our way, we can be grounded and hopefully be ready or at least adaptable as it comes our way. That's my wish for you this new year.